Oh, sure. Okay, so my name's Isabel, and I am the author of The Serpent Rider, which is this book. And The Serpent Rider is a middle grade fantasy adventure that is about a young warrior who has to rescue her sister when she gets kidnapped by an evil magician. And it's just about her adventures through a fantastical land full of Filipino myths and monsters. So if you're into that stuff, then you could go check it out.
I'm looking forward to checking it out. It's totally fantasy, totally up my alley. You said it was a Filipino myths and legends. Is that what inspired the Serpent Rider?
Yeah, exactly. So I when I was growing up, I heard a lot of Filipino legends from my family and from my friends. But then when I came to Australia and started reading the books here, a lot of the stories I was reading had really cool creatures, but not the ones that I was used to hearing about when I was a kid. So that's why I set out to write my own book about Filipino culture and myths, both for myself, like a story that I wanted to read myself, but also to share Filipino culture with other kids as well who might be interested.
It's really good to like have such a wide range of myths and legends being shared for kids of all ages because I know like a lot
Hmm.
of people focus on like Greek mythology quite a lot. They don't go into like other cultures, which is I would love to see a lot more of those. What drew you to writing?
So I think I've always loved reading when I was a kid, especially when I came here and then my parents started taking me and my siblings to the public libraries. It was just really cool to just be in a room that was full of books and you could just grab whatever book you wanted and then sit there and read. And I thought that was just so amazing. And what really drew me to writing was the fact that whenever I read a book, it was like looking into someone else's imagination through the words that were on the page. And then I thought that was really interesting because it was like something that the author thought of. They just wrote it down and then I could read it. And I just wanted to make up my own stories and share them with other people in the same way. And yeah, that's why I just started writing books when I was small and then kept going until I was like, maybe one day I could write and publish a book myself.
You have.
Oh. Yeah, I still am a bit in shock. Like I can't really quite believe that I actually have a book. So very lucky and grateful to everyone who made it happen.
Definitely. How did you choose which character to center the story around?
So it was very interesting for me because usually when I think of a story idea, characters usually come last. So it's usually plot first or world building, and then the characters come last. And they kind of just drop in wherever the story needs them. So I don't really know how I made the conscious decision to have Tani, who's the main character of the book, to be the star of the show. But I guess because it was a story about like a dragon, right? So usually in the classics, the dragon needs someone to slay the dragon. So I kind of wanted to have a similar character to that like dragon slayer narrative kind of thing. But I kind of want to make her Filipino like me. So I guess having like a fierce heroine was what this story needed. And so Tani just dropped into the story when I began writing. So yeah,
We always need strong females in books. They can be just as heroic than as men and boys.
exactly. Hmm.
What was your process for writing your books? Are you more of a plotter or a pantser?
I think I'm probably in the middle of those two, but kind of leaning towards the plotter side because drafting a book is probably my least favorite part of the process. Like I like editing, but then drafting is just, yeah. So I like having some kind of a plot in mind and like an end goal that I'm writing towards, but then how the characters actually go towards that ending and journey through the story to reach the ending is just a mystery to me. So I do have like an end goal in mind, but then when I write, I just let the characters take me in whatever direction they want to, and then somehow arrive at the ending, or maybe even a completely different ending, which is kind of what happened for this book, actually. I had an ending in mind, and then the characters all wanted to go different directions. And then, yeah, so it's a totally different ending to what I originally envisioned. But yeah, I'm glad that it ended up the way it is.
The characters knew what they wanted.
Yeah, exactly. I was writing and then I was like, don't do that, don't do that. And then they just went wherever they wanted to. And I was like, okay, now I have to get them out of this sticky situation that they've gotten themselves into. And I had to do that so many times, but I think this story ended up having its own kind of like sense of adventure and heart because of that. So I am happy that it ended up like this.
I think it
Yeah,
matches how like middle grade kids are exactly. Like you can tell them what to do and they can still go on
exactly.
exactly the different path.
Yeah, I've actually worked with a lot of kids, like school age kids, and that was kind of exactly what's going on with them as well. So I kind of tried to capture that essence and just put it into this book. So hopefully that comes through.
Probably they'll identify with the characters so much with that aspect.
Yeah, hopefully.
How do you approach your and character building? Do you have like a document that you keep track of, or you just have like little phrases and everything to help you with your characters and world?
So for world building, it was actually kind of easy because I put like my own childhood home into the book. So where my family grew up when I was small, literally the exact locations that were there. I changed the names in the book because it's like a second world fantasy kind of thing, but pretty much the locations from where I grew up as a kid, I pretty much put them right into the book and like exactly where the characters go is also where I went as a kid. So I feel like world building for me was kind of like I didn't really need to plot or plan it that much because I kind of just had it in my head and then kind of dropped the characters into those locations that I already know. But then for the characters themselves, I definitely did have a document of like notes and motivations. Like I know some authors will do like a character profile of like what they want and then their what they like and then what they don't like. So I kind of did something like that, but it was kind of more of a brain dump document. So everything I thought of about each character, I kind of just dumped it into a document. And then writing it down also helps me to internalize it into my own, like into my mind, so that whenever I sat down and then wrote the character, I already knew like you what how would they react in this scene. Yeah. And then sometimes how a character would react would change during edits, or like maybe I'd reach the end of the chapter and then be like, maybe they could have reacted in a different way to how I wrote it. So then I'd go back and like alter it based on what is true to the character and what would they really do in that situation. So yeah, character is always the hardest part of writing for me because it always characters always just come last whenever I brainstorm a story idea. So yeah, they need a lot of editing and a lot of work to try and get to the essence of who they really are and how they would act in a certain way.
I guess with fantasy, like the world and like all the fantastical elements are always like so quick to come. And it's like, actually, I don't know my characters really well. Oh, I think a character will pop up, hopefully, and tell me how they
Yeah,
are.
exactly. Yeah, I think the time in the story when I feel like I've got the essence of the characters when I just start typing and then the characters just start reacting on their own without having me consciously thinking about how they would react. I just type it in and then that's how I know like, okay, maybe I've really gotten the essence of this character and then who they are, I think. Yeah, and that's always a really special moment in the story.
You just hope it happens pretty quickly as you go.
Yeah, exactly. Because then otherwise I have to go back and fix so many things. I'm like,
Like,
I don't want to do this.
no more Reddits, please.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite moment in the book to write?
Um, I don't really, I think the whole book in a way was really fun to write because I just enjoyed writing a story that was inspired by my heritage and Filipino folklore and everything. But I have to say, I really did like writing the action scenes. So in the book, there's a lot of fights with different Filipino monsters and like terrifying creatures. And I think writing them was really fun because I do like writing action scenes in general, but then being able to write action scenes with like really scary Filipino creatures, which I think are in their own way kind of more terrifying than like Western creatures or a lot of them, because they're just so out there and so different to what you see in like Western culture that I just thought it was really fun to explore the dynamics of like how to defeat the creatures or like how you can possibly fight against creatures that are so different from anything that you've seen before. So I think that was really fun for me to write.
Did you take any inspiration from like other mo action movies or like any other books to help you write the action scenes?
I think I definitely took inspiration from video games because I think especially in like fantasy video games when you fight enemies, the special effects are really cool because it's got magic and stuff. So I think I took I took a lot of inspiration from like how the characters would act and react in those games and then kind of put it into this book. Yeah. So
That is,
some of the ways that the characters defeat the enemies are actually kind of heavily inspired from the video games that I used to play.
so cool that you can use like everything that you have done or like have read to just sort of help you and like, inspire you to with different
Yeah,
facets.
it's so random. It's like you never really think it'll be useful, and then it just pops up, and you're like, okay, that was actually, I'm happy I played that video game.
It was useful in this case. It wasn't
Yeah,
like
exactly. Like, I'm happy I didn't listen to my parents and stop playing the video game to do my homework because it came in useful now.
it was useful, it was helpful. I learned it was educational in that aspect.
Hmm, exactly.
Which of your characters do you relate to the most and why?
Hmm, that's a really interesting question. I think there is a bit of myself in all of the characters in one way or another. So, for example, the main character, Tani, she really wants to do what's best for her village and doesn't like disappointing people, which I think is definitely something I can relate to. But I think out of all the characters, I'm probably most similar to Kiri, who is her Tani's friend, who's very shy and timid. He's not very confident in his own abilities and often thinks he's the weakest of all of his friends, which is definitely something that I could relate to, especially growing up. But then over the course of the book and as they adventure, he sort of grows and realizes that, maybe he's stronger than he thought he was. So it was really interesting for me writing that character arc because I could sort of relate to it a lot. Um, but yeah, he is the one that I relate to the most, and I hope that other kids who read him in the story, who possibly relate to him, will also see that, they can be heroes too in their own stories.
I think there's a that will resonate with a lot of people I know that little
Hmm,
bits of each character sort of hit home with me as well in books. So I'm sure that a
hmm.
lot of the characters will.
Hopefully.
How has writing and publishing a book changed the way you see yourself?
I think it is it's definitely been a really extraordinary experience for me. Like I didn't really think it would ever get published. Like obviously I always dreamed of becoming an author and then publishing a book, but I never really expected to actually be holding my book and like, oh, I've made it. So I I am very grateful, I think, to everyone who's helped me get here and who inspired me to believe in myself so that I could actually write the book and get it down. But yeah, I guess it's just shown me that I am actually capable of, more than I thought I was, because I didn't think I'd even finish a book, let alone get it published. So I'm really proud of like how far I've come and, that I actually had a book in me. So yeah.
Do you think you have more books in you? I've got more ideas coming around in your head.
I definitely have a lot of ideas. So fingers crossed I get to write them. But yeah, we'll see.
Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
So I think I read a lot of Emily Rodda books growing up. So being in Australia, like every school library had like a set of Del Toro quest in
Yes.
it. And
And
every
they still
teacher's
do.
desk, exactly. Every teacher's desk had Del Toro quest on it, which because that series was actually so good. I really wish that it would get picked up by international audiences a lot more. But I really loved reading that series. And then also her previous series, The Rowan of Rin. series, I think, because I really love that sense of questing and adventure and the idea of just kids saving the world from destruction, which I think really appealed to me when I was a kid and also inspired a lot of the themes that I use when I write my books too. So yeah, that definitely inspired me. And I actually got to meet Emily Rodda once,
Oh, that's really cool.
when one of her books came out. So that was like a really special moment. And hearing her talk about her own journey writing books also really inspired me to write my own.
There's always like a few authors that like are like pitiful when you're young, and it's like, yep, I
Mm.
definitely want to be a writer and try and get a story out there.
Yeah, I'm so glad that Del Toro Quest was out when I was like school age,
Yeah.
because I just devoured those books. They were so good.
What advice would you give to a writer working on their first book? And if you were given any advice when you were starting out on writing your book?
Hmm. So when I was starting out, I think the most useful advice I got was just finish a book
Mhm.
kind of thing. So it sounds very obvious, like obviously you have to finish a book to get it published. But I think where it becomes difficult and where it became really difficult for me was just not being confident enough in my ability to write the book. So I would just start and then be like, oh, this is not good. This is not great. This is not going to get published. And then I just give up and then start another one. And then the cycle would just repeat again. But my advice would be if you have a story that you like and that you really believe in, no one should stop you from getting it out there. Like you should sit down, finish it, and then send it out, and the right people will find it, and the right people that it connects to will find it, and then they'll love it. So, not every book is gonna connect to everyone,
Mhm.
but every book will be special to someone, and that's what you just have to hang on to, and just as long as you believe in the book, then the people who need it will find it. So yeah, just keep writing those books, finishing the books, and then one day it'll be out.
It's perfect advice. You always you need to at least get finish it so it's done and there and that you can work
Hmm.
on it as well. What's your favorite writing snack or drink?
Ooh, I really like tea. I think coffee is a bit too strong for me. I think I do like a good coffee, but I generally tend to drink like a hot black tea or something while writing. I don't usually eat snacks because then that will just sidetrack me too much and I wouldn't get anything done. So, yeah, tea is my go-to writing drink.
Do you play music when you're writing? And if you have any favorite music to listen to?
I generally don't play music when I'm writing because I feel like I'll get too swept up in the music and get distracted from what I'm actually writing. But I do use music when I'm brainstorming. So, for example, if I'm writing like an adventure book, I'd listen to adventure type music, or like from a movie. If there's like a movie with similar themes that's in my book, I'll play the soundtrack and then listen to it while brainstorming ideas. Yeah, so music is really helpful to help me think of ideas, but then when I'm actually writing, I just have silence.
I think depending on the music, you would start singing along too instead of
Yeah,
actually.
exactly. Especially when it's like a Disney soundtrack. It's like if I ever tried writing while on a Disney soundtrack, I would just not get anything done.
Just too caught up in the magic of Disney.
Yeah, exactly.
And my final question is, who has been your biggest supporter of your writing?
I think it was definitely my family because they were the ones who believed in me and told me that I could write a book even when I genuinely did not think I could write a book. So they were the ones who were like, you should finish it because you've written so many random ideas that you started but not finished. So you should just sit down, finish a book, and then see if you can get it published. And then if not, it's okay and you can try again. So I think they were just really supportive of me. And I think they were the first people who knew that I was actually writing a book to begin with. Like I didn't really tell a lot of people that I was working on this manuscript. So without them, I don't think it definitely would not have got published actually. So yeah, very grateful to my family for supporting my writing.
It's always good that your closest family are like
Hmm.
the biggest cheerleaders as well in the book when it comes to writing because it takes a lot of time and
Yeah.
dedication to write books.